Joining us now is Kyle Olson, and Kyle Olson is a senior reporter with Breitbart. Hey, Kyle, thanks for being with us.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
I mean, the outrage is going on here. The algorithms, Google basically has taken your site. They've pushed it down. They've taken you out of the algorithms, which hurts your ability to get revenue. I mean, the fake news running rampant. I mean, can you believe that the Richmond Times-Dispatch, Kyle, doesn't run an op-ed from a state senator on the riots as the city burns down, who's in the city, and this is where he lives? Can you believe that?
Well, it doesn't really surprise me. And what's funny to me about that is that cutting it down to 200 words, if it's going on a website, how much does that matter how long it is? That doesn't matter at all. They're just... And we're seeing this all the time, as you touched on with what's going on with Breitbart. I mean, there is very clear suppression with my beat in particular. I cover the Joe Biden campaign for Breitbart, and you can look at the data in terms of searches on Google for Breitbart and Joe Biden, and it just back a couple months ago, it just dropped to basically zero. And so, there's Tom Cotton and a lot of people are saying this is very clear election interference that's being perpetuated by these big tech companies.
Well, it's fake news. And when we talk about fake news, a lot of people think, well, that's the media lying. No, it's the media that what they do when we call it fake news is they perpetuate a narrative. And if what somebody is saying or doing or an event does not fit the narrative, doesn't support their narrative of the day, week, month, they simply don't cover it. Like they simply won't run Joe's op-ed piece. Or we have rioters last night, Kyle in Richmond, walking down the street, smashing the windows at the Omni Hotel, the John Marshall Hotel, scaring away patrons, people getting up in the middle of the night, getting in their cars and leaving the city. Just they wouldn't even check out. They just split and went somewhere else. And like cops do nothing, mayor does nothing. Can't find it. If you searched it, you can't find it because that doesn't fit their narrative. Protesters are peaceful, statues are bad, Black Lives Matter is all good. All they want to do is have social change, etc. Right? But when they smash windows, destroy property, and loot, you can't find it.
Right, and we saw that in Michigan, where I live, with our governor, Gretchen Whitmer. What happened a couple months ago is there were these protests coming up in Lansing where people were saying, we want to reopen the state, we want to go back to work, we want to provide for our families, all of that. And she was attacking the demonstrators, attacking the protesters who were 100% peaceful, attacking them as they were spreading coronavirus. But yet when the whole George Floyd situation happened and there were these protests, which of course many of them were turning into riots, Gretchen Whitmer herself was out in the streets protesting against the police and protesting regarding what happened to George Floyd. And that was perfectly fine. And when she was asked about that, which, I'm sure the situation is similar in Richmond, you have, the state capitol reporters who they're not very aggressive. They're not very, they don't really confront people. But they never asked her about, do you see the hypocrisy here where you're calling the people who are against your orders, saying that they're spreading the virus and all of that and whipping up fear. But yet when it's a protest you want to attend, you do, and you don't see any problem with that.
Look, it's a sick situation that is going on in the fake news, and that's why it's media outlets like yours, like mine, is where people come to get the truth, Kyle. We're with Kyle Olson, senior writer for Breitbart News. Kyle, let's change topics here a second, and let's get to Kamala Harris. What was your take? You covered the Biden campaign. We predicted here on the show 2 months ago he'd pick her. I don't think he had an option. What's your take on Kamala Harris?
It doesn't really surprise me. I watched a lot of cable news last night to sort of see what the impression was going to be. And they said, basically, the overarching opinion on CNN and MSNBC was basically, this is just fantastic and what a step forward for, black people and all of that sort of thing. And they said how this was really trying to reach out to young people. And I thought to myself, if you go back to the primaries, Kamala Harris never even made it to the voting. She dropped out before there was a single vote cast, which should tell you something about her support in the Democratic Party. In one of the last polls in California, when she was still a candidate, she was at 7% in her home state. And there was never this groundswell of, black voters turning out for her or supporting her campaign. There was never a groundswell of young people supporting her campaign. So I think that, like you said, she was sort of the predictable choice. I'm not sure, maybe she will attempt to sort of prosecute the case against Donald Trump. It seemed to me that she did that or attempted to do that in the Senate during the Kavanaugh hearings and all of that. She wasn't successful. Will she be successful during a campaign? We'll have to wait and see.
Well, look, I don't think she adds anything to the ticket. If you're voting for Biden, you're voting for Biden. If you're not, you're not. You had a segment with Robert Cahaly of the Trafalgar Group, and basically what he was saying is that there's a tremendous enthusiasm gap between Trump and Biden, and that is not showing up in any of the public polling information. Can you elaborate on that, Kyle?
Sure. One of the questions I had for him, because I keep hearing this, that there's an enthusiasm gap, and he said, yes, but it's not what people think. And he said there is a gap, but there is a strong, anti-Trump sentiment, which most of those people will vote for Biden. But he said what is actually happening when you're seeing the polls play out on CNN and MSNBC, where you see, Biden is up by 13% and 10% and he's running away, like in Michigan. They claim that he's up by double digits, which I think is not accurate. But he said what that actually is doing is it's telling the anti-Trump voters, oh, you don't need to go out and vote because Biden's already going to win. Mm-hmm. But he is saying, what he told me was that the Trump supporters are upset with the cancel culture and tearing down the statues. I mean, your listeners can relate to that. And all of that, and they can't wait to go and voice their opinion on Election Day in November. And so what he also said was that the election is much closer than what some of those the CNN and Fox News polls are showing. And he said if you dig into the undecideds and the third-party supporters, it's actually much closer. And in fact, he predicted that Trump would win Michigan, for example, which is, one of the biggest battleground states in the country.
Every poll now shows Trump down in Michigan somewhere between 4 or 5, the best polls, and 15. So you look at Michigan, when every poll is showing you down by double digits, and those that don't show you down by 5 or 6, is that realistic?
I think so. Robert told me that their last poll, and he said they were going to be in the field in Michigan this week, so there'll be new numbers. But he said their last poll showed that Trump was down 1. And so he said if you go dig a little deeper and you look at the positions of those undecideds and that sort of thing, he actually would win the state because Robert Cahaly believed that those undecideds would end up going to Trump and therefore he'd win. And I think that is consistent. And so this discussion about the vice president, and, a lot of people say, well, the vice president never really, they never really impact the race.
Right.
I would say, well, you look at 2008 with Sarah Palin. I think that she impacted the race, and John McCain needed that, which is, that's a whole nother discussion. But the point is, this year of any year, there is going to be, I think, more focus on the vice presidential candidate because of Joe Biden's cognitive decline.
Right, and his age, and look, he's already said he's going to run for one term. A lot of people think he's a placeholder, and he's not going to be capable. He might not even finish his term. So there is going to be a lot of scrutiny on Kamala Harris. That's why, if you looked at any of the other candidates that they were interviewing, she's the only one to me that made sense because, look, the Biden campaign wants to make this election a referendum on how Donald Trump handled coronavirus. That's what they want to make this campaign about, right? And so you're not going to go with a Sarah Palin. We were talking earlier, Kyle, about some of the picks that were made that were very bold and outside the box, but they were done for a reason. I thought McCain's pick of Sarah Palin was a brilliant pick because he was going to lose anyway. He had to do something to shake it up. And for about 3 weeks, that looked like a brilliant move until the wheels came off. And other than that, you got to go back to the other most brilliant pick ever, which was when Richard Nixon picked Spiro Agnew, governor of Maryland, in 1968. Wallace was polling about 20% nationally. He was 25% in Maryland. He was going to pick off too many southern states. He was ahead in North Carolina, South Carolina. These are states Richard Nixon had to win. Conservatives didn't trust him, right? So what does he do? He picks a right-wing conservative at the time, Spiro Agnew. So at the time, Maryland was considered a southern state. Picks him, wins those states, and without him, Humphrey beats him. Brilliant pick. But these were picks of people that were behind, right? And so Biden's ahead. So why is he going to pick anybody that is going to take a risk, right?
Right. And so, and what does she really bring? I mean, she's from California. They're already going to win California. I'm not sure how she really shakes things up, unless the argument is, like you said, he is the placeholder, and she will sort of pass off the torch to the next generation, if you want to consider her that. Beyond that, I'm not really sure exactly what she brings. I mean, she clearly, you could see it in the debates against him, that she can be the attack dog and she can sort of, prosecute the case. I don't know how effective she would be. Mike Pence has a lot of experience, is very good, I think, on the stump. Doesn't come off as sort of flappable and can be, knocked off balance. So my guess right now is that debate would probably be more of a draw than anything, because I think he is very effective at defending the administration's record, and he has a record of his own. So I'm not sure, how it ultimately gets shaken up with a Kamala Harris on the ticket.
Kyle Olson with Breitbart, senior reporter for Breitbart News, also the host of the Kyle Olson Show, syndicated in Michigan on the weekends, and his podcast. Kyle, thanks for being with us. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you very much.
All right, good luck. John Fredericks Radio Network.